The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hello, everyone. Hey, it's Mr. Boettcher and myself breaking down security this week.
Hey.
Okay, wait.
Can you hear me?
Okay, hang on a second. I love this part.
Audio
This is always the
issues.
fun part where it's really awkward for me.
You've only
Okay.
been doing this for what, 6 months?
Look,
3.
you know, I would love it if OBS would actually just keep my settings, because every time I change audio inputs and stuff, and I always use the same audio input, and I can hear you now. And I can see
Okay.
your little thing going up on the audio bits. But I always have to go into the advanced audio properties and select don't monitor and then monitor and output again. And that's the only way I can hear both this in my ear and everybody on the stream, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. So, I mean, you would think they'd get that shit right, or they'd set some kind of default where it's always monitor and output, and I've tried that and it doesn't work. So anyway, how are you doing, sir?
Awesome.
Yeah?
Now my
for-
brother-in-law gave me
so-
this
What happened?
light thing. Let's see.
What is
He swears by it. Let's see. Can I...
well, we can't be light buddies. Damn it. I have a headlamp that I use
we
at
go.
night when it's dark and stuff. So, hold on, I got something. I have to have headwear as well. So hold on, I'll just put my little mouse ears on. There we go.
All right.
I got to have something because I'll feel left out and nobody will love me. So, I'm gonna.
Okay.
There you go. There we go. Good Lord, man. Lens flare. It's like a J.J. Abrams movie up in this piece. God.
Anyway,
Yeah, welcome to all of our friends joining us. We are simul streaming this on, I don't know why LinkedIn won't work this time, and I'm about ready to give up on them because I don't know if there actually is people who look at it or watch it. We're simul streaming on YouTube as well. So, you know, we have a YouTube channel with streams and stuff on it, and a lot of our podcast episodes end up over on YouTube as well. We're, you know, I'm learning things as I go along. This on the back here, if you were watching any of our Twitch streams this week with me, I'm creating some training at work, so I figured out how to put a drop cloth in because nobody at work wants to see all the stuff in the background there. It's unprofessional or something. I don't know. So apparently this is going to be unprofessional too, so I won't be able to, you know, like have headgear on and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I had Christmas stuff here, but now it's I guess next week it's going to be Valentine's Day decorations.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. You could put some hearts up and some little cherubs and, you know, little cupids. Yeah, that would be nice.
Didn't you post on LinkedIn actually?
Post what on LinkedIn?
Speaking of LinkedIn, like today.
Oh yeah, I did several times. We'll actually get to that. That's number 7 on the list. Links that we'll be posting up. So I did make several posts on there. So yeah. So how's things been going for you? I know we talked a little bit before the show, but you know, how are you doing?
Good. I
Yeah?
have you know, with the economy fixing to take a dirt nap, I think.
Figuratively,
so far,
not literally.
So good.
Figuratively,
Yeah.
not literally. Yeah. I don't want you taking
Yeah.
a dirt nap on my watch, sir. So too much love there.
Yeah. So how
Yeah.
about you?
Not too bad. Happy anniversary, by the way. Apparently
Really?
we are InfoSec history.
Uh-huh.
Like, I was on Twitter the other day and it was like, there's this day in InfoSec history or something. And somebody had put out, BrakeSec put their first episode out today in 2014. And I was like, oh my God, we're history. I didn't know.
What's that? 8 years? 9? 9 years?
Yeah, we're going on our 9th year. Hey, Walt, what's up?
Ooh.
People who complain about unprofessional are drab people with sticks up their backsides. I appreciate the candor there. Yeah, I agree with that too, but I also kind of want to be somewhat, ideally what I'd love to this had been would have been the green screen that I have. Unfortunately, the green screen only goes to about this high, being 6 foot tall. The green screen goes up to about 6 foot. If I was sitting in a chair, it would be fine, but then I have all of this up here that you can see, and it's like, damn. So when we move to the new place, I'll either get a proper like large green screen that kind of fits like this along the back of a wall so that I can, put in whatever I want. But right now, this is just a projector screen that I had at InfoSec Campout that I bought for. It's 120 inches, and it's got a carabiner hooked up to my ceiling fan, and it's got an it's all janky. It's just janky, but it's white enough that people don't complain too much. So
Yeah. Yeah. If you get the green screen, then you can put like a roller coaster ride in the background.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I can have twinkly lights and, like
if you're not
what
confident
people
about
pay,
your
yeah,
presentation or something,
Yeah.
just distract everybody.
right. And for those of you on the audio podcast, I do apologize. It's a lot of theater of the mind right now. But we are definitely going to be talking about some news and stuff for what's going on here. But yeah, so I'm working on the second episode with an actual outline, which we have in our Google site. There's 7 things, Mr. Boettcher. I selected 7 things. I mean, I've always asked Miss Berlin and Mr. Boettcher to add other things if they see fit, but we can pick one of these 7 things, or we can start with something you want to talk about.
Something I want to talk about.
It's an option. If you decide, well, I don't have anything to talk about, we'll start with number 4, then we'll start with number 4. But I just want to give you an opportunity to, do something other than the 7 things that Bryan thought we might talk about.
Well, I might weigh in later, but yeah, let's go from the top.
Okay.
Or number 4, if you'd like.
Okay. So, if you've been under a rock, and I, don't want to make light of this, if you're, people should stop assuming that anyone not running a $20,000 studio is not a professional. Both of you are professionals. That makes the podcast professional, period. Thank you, Walt. I appreciate the feedback on that. And I hope to see you at Black Lodge on Wednesday, February 1st. We're doing CSEC East there. So digression there. For all of you who are in the Seattle area, we'll be having CSEC East. I announced it today. So not to make light of what happened, but there's a lot of layoffs happening. Meta, Facebook, Microsoft, Alphabet, Google, Amazon, Sophos, Unity Games. I mean, there's a ton of them, and I don't want to say this is the season of layoffs, but a lot of these organizations spent time building up during the pandemic because they felt they needed to have people, and just in the last 2-3 weeks, we've seen a lot of organizations in big tech trimming the fat, if you will. And I found that interesting because my wife and I, we both work for one of those fangs or mangoes. I don't tend to mention which one I do. I have mentioned previously in the podcast, my wife works for one of those. Not to dox her, but she doesn't hide it anywhere. And my thought was, companies tend to do layoffs as a cost saving measure. It's almost like, and I actually had this discussion with her today. Stock market is up. Stock market was up Thursday and Friday, I think, because layoffs are seen as a corrective measure, kind of like how breach notifications when the PR and marketing firms come in and go, oh, sorry, we fucked up. We'll do better next time. We're putting controls in place to make it better. The stock market likes that, which is why you see the bump in stock when a company has been breached, because, they're going to make some corrective changes. They're going to make changes. Things are going to get better next time. Unlike T-Mobile, usually that happens. So, Mr. Boettcher, what was your, we may have talked about this previously with other layoffs that were happening, but most companies, I would imagine when they're trying to do layoffs, they try to think about how the layoffs will affect their future strategy. It's not like a point in time kind of thing. I have been laid off once, I think. Well, actually, that was probably more of a firing, but we'll talk about that later. But I don't think I've ever been laid off from a security job. Um, excuse me. So seeing the kinds of layoffs that are happening, I mean, if your company was laying off, uh, does your would your company, do you believe, think about the strategy of going forward, or what are you going to work on ahead of time for that? How do you feel like these companies are doing layoffs?
I do think they're thinking about the strategy. There's a couple of different scenarios there. Um, for maybe the mid to small companies, it's about survival, right?
Hmm.
If their books don't balance, they could go bankrupt.
Right.
Okay, so sometimes it comes down to timing as well. We have to lay off 15-20% of our workforce by Friday, or we file bankruptcy. I mean,
Right.
full stop. So there's some of that, right? Because they're losing revenue.
Right.
And I don't know why. Supply chain issues, people are not spending as much as they were. Because remember, after the pandemic, there was all this money. The government was printing money, giving it to people because they locked them down, right? So um, people had a lot of money and they were spending it. And so that you had this huge growth, right? Now things are
Right.
starting to contract, and companies can see in the future that it's unsustainable if they have this many employees. Now, they're cutting costs in other ways, obviously, at least I hope they are. Products that they may not use, downsizing, working with their vendors, right? So maybe you have um, 100 licenses of this product and you're only using 50 now because you've laid off all those workers, or you um, projected growth and that growth never happened. So
Right.
hopefully they're cutting back on those licenses, things like that,
Right.
and other expenses. But yeah, I
Right.
see that as a okay. Let's prevent us from filing bankruptcy. The other thing is, and it happens more in larger companies, is we've got to um, cut workforce so that we maintain profitability, right? Maybe they have a buffer that they can work with, but they see a contraction. And
Right.
these CEOs talk amongst themselves. They know things are going to be very difficult this year, going forward. Now, stock market, I know China announced they are fully reopened now, and
Right.
it's going to take them a while to ramp up also. So that was good news for the stock market, and that's why you saw the stock market go up for the past couple of days, because there's optimism there that
Right.
China can uh, prop up the world economy in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen, and and I kind of had some comments this morning on Twitter with somebody talking about the layoffs and the issues that are going on, and I've when I say cutting the fat in this case, it is the areas that the company feels extraneous, right? Or isn't working for them. We've seen, um, you know, Microsoft. Some of the hits were in certain areas of AI because Chat GPT. Of course, this morning I just saw that they're now offering a premium version of Chat GPT for $42 a month. Um, and they have 75 million users. So whoever's bought in on ChatGPT and OpenAI, the math according to them is like $2 to $3 billion a year of revenue and growth. Even if only 10% of the 75 million users sign up for the premium $42 a month option, so there's big money to be had there, and there's a lot of those big companies like Microsoft that have invested in that, and they may have had their own AI departments. I think we heard Amazon had dropped one of the robotics divisions in the previous in one of the previous sets of layoffs, and it's a lot of this. They're trying to figure out what the future was, and they've got their hands in all these pies, and everything. And it's like, well, this pie is not good. Let's get rid of this. Let's trim the fat in this case. When I asked about and openly to my boss, I was like, "Do you see security getting hit?" And he called it a bones type organization, a bones type cut, if you will, where you cut the fat, cut the meat, and then you cut the bone in this case. And he said, if we start cutting security jobs, some bad shit's happening, right? It's bad, right? If our companies decided to start cutting security people, because security is always something that's going to need to be there, and developers, I don't want to say are a commodity, but there are far more developers out there than there are security people, at least for what the skill sets are being asked for. So, at least our org has seen or feels like they see value in that. We're actually hiring security people, and that's the other thing that I wanted to bring up. It's like the layoffs. Now that the layoffs have happened, that means there's now room to open up and have jobs available. Like some of these slots that have been frozen because we didn't know where we were going and in which direction and what have you are now going to open up. Walt said, "Okay, but Microsoft made 17 billion in profit last quarter, so those layoffs are not because they lost money." That's more than a fair cop. I mean, but it's, if anything, it's they realize that they're either their programs aren't working and Chat GPT is going to be better, or there's programs out there that just aren't right, and that may be that. I don't know. I would hope that we've seen at the end of, at least for the next 6 months, that there's not going to be any more layoffs. But I'm hoping at this point we've started to right size. All of them have dropped at least anywhere between 5 to 15% of their company ranks. So, Walt, you're absolutely correct. Poor management and fear of the future. I don't think it's fear of the future. I think some companies have realized what the future is. And I think a lot of it is going to hinge on Chat GPT or, AI kind of stuff. And then there's just some that's like, hey, we spent $5 billion on a levitating toilet lid. What are we going to do with this? And then it's like, well, okay, nobody wants a levitating toilet lid. And so, my wife uses the levitating laptop, but I actually think that's kind of cool. And so I would probably want a levitating laptop, but not a levitating toilet bowl.
They do see signs in the economy as well, like the yield curve is inverted, right? The 10 and 2 bonds, which indicate a recession.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
They basically, like the housing market has been collapsing for the last 13 months.
Yeah.
It's been going down for 13 straight months. And at some point, people are going to wake up and say, hey, wait a minute. My house is not worth what I thought it was, right? When you try to sell it. So there's all these signs that, like I said, these leaders are talking amongst themselves and they know something is not right. Yeah. And whether or not it manifests into a recession, we don't know, but they're preparing. And there's a lot of companies out there, in my opinion, or most companies could probably cut 10% of their workforce and they might be better off. If you think about it, maybe they got too aggressive with their hiring.
Right.
To your point, during the pandemic, when they hired more people, maybe it's time to cut back naturally. They might have had some really great hires and some not so great hires. And so it's time to lay off some of the not so great hires and keep the ones that are pulling the company forward.
Well, some of those also, some of this, a lot of times layoffs are often redundancy kind of thing. Like, they've done mergers and acquisitions during the last 2 years. So some of that is going to be, we don't need 3 different R&D shops. We're going to combine what we have, and, those are going to, we're going to have, there's always going to be redundancy in M&As. So, I mean, to be fair, 6% sounds like a lot, but, Microsoft had what, a million employees. I mean, 6% is like 60,000 people.
It's a lot.
Amazon has 1 million plus people, and they've gotten rid of 6 to 10% of theirs. So they've lost, roughly 100,000 people. But um, it there's going to be some redundancy, and some of that may be temp workers. Some of that may be we're just not going to re-up these contractors to save money. That some of these are not layoffs of like Amazon employees. There's all kinds of stuff, right?
I don't know. I'm more glass half empty in this case because you had layoffs before Christmas, and that rarely happens.
Yep.
What's going to happen after? Okay, it's earnings season right now. What happens if these earnings come out and they're not good? The more
Right.
people you lay off, the less people are working, so they're not buying as much. A laid off person isn't going to spend as much
Right.
as a person who's fully employed. And so uh, that just cascades upon itself, right?
Right.
It's like a avalanche almost,
Yep.
and it just gets bigger and bigger. So I'm not too optimistic, but we'll wait and see. Right now, I'm just maintaining, and we'll
Yeah.
hope for the best and prepare for the worst, right?
Yeah. You know, one of the pieces of advice that I had from a friend of mine, and this was in my company. We knew the layoffs were coming, and the first set of layoffs we had, there were security people that were hit, but because of how the organization was set up, these were security people that were deeply embedded in the floating toilet lid engineering space. So they were deeply embedded with that program. And when the whole program got, offed, um, it was, they got sent along with it. And one of the things, because I was embedded with an engineering team, and me and my colleague who was doing security with me, we saw the writing on the wall, and we were like, okay, we don't want to be those people. So I reached out to my boss, who we had a reorg. So he was boss, not in that org, in that engineering group. And I said, look, I got to diversify. I can't just be tied to this one program. I've got to have other programs. I've got to have other things that I'm doing security with, because I don't want to be in that group. And then, if it gets cannexed for whatever reason, to get stuck out there. So, we automatically started doing that. And, that's, it caused some consternation with the engineering manager, because he was like, well, so you're not going to be working for me anymore? I was like, technically I never was. I was consulting and informing. I wasn't responsible and accountable for anything. So, we'll still be here. We're communicating, we're collaborating, we're still having our meetings with you. You can still talk to us about things, but I have other things that I need to work on as well. And it's like, we have to, to manage those things. And it was hard to not say, I didn't want to say, well, I don't believe in your product. It's just like, I have to insulate myself from, having the entire department, thrown out, and I'm out with it. So, I got added on to a couple of other programs, and I'm working on some process improvement, which is why you see the white behind me. For those of you watching the stream, I'm making some training for those programs, which is great. And I'm also helping to facilitate and, do some community leadership and what have you. So, I would say try to figure out ways not to make yourself indispensable, but if your org, or you've heard rumors that there's layoffs, see if there's ways that you can diversify yourself in the org. Either, work on, volunteer for process improvement internally, or, take on some other tasks or other things to show additional value, if at all possible. Walt says, my company has announced no layoffs because we want to be ready for when the recession is over. Current management has a longer term view. Some companies will think long term like that. Our management has an optimistic view. They're a bit more glass half full than Mr. Boettcher's glass half empty. And I think that they're fairly confident that this will go out. But there's some parts in these larger companies that are like, we can't compete with Chat GPT, or we can't compete with, fancy drones, or we can't compete with, the latest new hotness or whatever. Oh, NFTs are not a thing anymore, or, whatever. And they're having to fix that out. But yeah, layoffs should, I think be strategic, right? You should lay off what you can, but understand that the future, this recession is not going to last forever. Then you're going to have to ramp up or get back to where you were. So there's definitely there's an art, I think, to laying off, unlike what it used to be, where it always felt like you were just throwing darts
Yeah.
at a dartboard, and it was just, random people. So, but anyway,
Yeah. And it's good. Well, it almost feels like .com. And
right,
I don't know where you were, Brian, in during .com, but companies like the FANG stocks, if they were around then, I know that Amazon was, and
right,
Google, and they got hit pretty hard, but
right,
they came out the other side stronger and ready to move quickly, right? So they didn't get hit as hard as their competitors, who most of them went out of business,
yeah,
right? So if you can survive this one, and this may be just as big or bigger than .com,
right,
then then if you come out the other side unscathed or still alive, there's huge opportunity there,
right,
huge,
right,
because from the ashes, right?
right. Yeah, I was recession proof during the boom. I was in the Navy until 2004. So, they
Mm-hmm.
Navy IT person. I was good. Actually, 2000, I was on a tiny island in the Indian Ocean called Diego Garcia, hoping that Y2K wasn't going to bring about the new revolution, and thankfully nothing happened. So, but yeah, from 2000 to 2004, I didn't even know there was a .com boom bust. So, yeah. Um, but yeah, so interesting insights. I'd love to hear other people if they are fun employed or laid off or what have you. I think it's also maybe a good time to think about where you want to take your next career option. When I left CrowdStrike, I realized I was not going to be a technical person in my next job. When we started the podcast, I was supposed to be the red team guy, and Mr. Boettcher was supposed to be the defense. And I realized I don't have what it takes to be the red team. So I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do? And luckily, one of my friends, Chrisman, was like, you should probably come and talk to us. We need some TPMs. We need a managing consultant. And I was like, okay. And so now I'm more of a security TPM. And doing a
Mm-hmm.
senior gig and helping people in a different format, and that works for me. Now, you may have been 7 years working as a SOC analyst, or you may be working in something and you're like, God, security sucks, or this is not what I expected, or this is not what I signed up for. There are probably opportunities out there that are not security based or less security based, and maybe more of a less an IC role and more of a manager role or a senior type position that you could move to. And it, it is scary moving roles or moving careers or changing things, but there's always some things adjacent that you can do potentially to help with that. And for me, it was moving to a consultancy and being a managing consultant. So um, it's one of those things. Maybe you want to move into compliance, or compliance definitely is not going anywhere. That's another one of those ones that I would say is probably a bone kind of thing. You're not going to get rid of your PCI auditor. You're not going to get rid of your your ISO coordinator or whatever of those things. So it pays the bills, and you can do things on the side if you wanted to, for the most part. So just a thought there. If some of you are unemployed, it's like maybe you could retool. Maybe you could take some online courses, or do something to help get yourself with a new skill set or new mindset. So
Yeah, definitely well-rounded people, or people with a lot of experience in different areas of security, are more
right,
likely to get the job than if you just specialize in one thing, uh,
right,
unless you do it better than anyone else. So
right,
yeah, it's as long as you're not being lazy, as long as you put forth a great effort and you're valuable to your company. Um, if you just, getting laid off may not be your fault at all. It may just be circumstantial,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Just wrong place, wrong time, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera. Nothing that your skills or your attitude or whatnot brought to bear.
Right.
But yeah, just make the most of your current situation. If you cannot find a job, um, hone your skills and keep plugging away. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The one thing I would say is don't say, "Oh, I think I'll take 3 to 4 months off and not do anything, and then I'll start looking for a job in 3 to 4 months."
Right.
Don't, please don't, just don't do that. Okay, just please don't. I've seen too many people who did that, and then it was like, "What have you been doing the last 3 to 4 months?" "Oh, I've just been sat on my ass watching Oprah," or Oprah's not on still, but
Yeah.
I had several people that were like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna be fun employed for a few months," and then it's like it takes them 7 months to find a new job, and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm really hurting for money and whatever." I'm like, always be looking, always be looking. The minute you decide you want to be fun
Right.
employed, or you just leave a company because you don't want to work there anymore, I don't quite understand how that shit works. Um, Always be looking, always be applying. Your new job now is to find you a new job, right? And that's how you should
That's
treat
right.
looking for a new job.
Yeah. Put
Don't,
in your eight
yeah,
hours doing that,
right, right.
those gaps hurt.
Yep, yep. Um, yeah, you may be completely burnt out, but rent and food take money. And if you have not saved anything, or you're living off of your savings, some point your savings is going to run out. And so keep looking, right? I have a friend of mine. He says he has no bills. He's been fun employed for about a year now. I worry about him. And,
Yeah.
he doesn't have any debt, he says, which is great. But I worry about him because he hasn't really been looking the way when I ask him, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm good. I don't have to." And I'm like, "You, I'm scared for you, son. I'm scared for you." But yeah, it's like your new job is now finding yourself a new job, right? So, yeah, but just think about that. If you tried to voluntarily leave your organization with no backup plan, I see too many security people and people on Twitter like, "Oh, I just quit today because I just don't want to work anymore." And it's like, I have to worry about your mental state by you saying that. Whether or not you can't stand to work there in another day, you got to have a backup plan, or you're gonna run into issues. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think we've beaten the layoff thing to death. I hope we don't see any more layoffs in the next few days. I think Apple's the only major contender who hasn't done layoffs, and I haven't heard anything about them laying anybody off. I did hear Tim Cook, according to Twitter, had taken a pay cut, which is kind of cool. I guess I don't know if he took like a $2 pay cut or whatever it was, but Apple is probably, I think, the last of the behemoths that have not announced any kind of layoffs yet. So, but we may see that in the coming months. So, um, okay. Uh, can we do number 4? Can we go ahead and do number 4? Attack surface
Okay.
management.
Let me
There's
pull
supposed to
that
be a
up.
URL. There's supposed to be a
I'm
URL
pretty
there,
sure
but I don't I can't do stuff right. So, all right. So, Flashpoint, this is a product website. So at the bottom they say, "Hey, contact us and we'll help you with your shit like that." Actually met a friend of mine, Barb, who I hadn't seen in a couple years, at an ISSA meeting last week, and she's on contract working for some major financial company doing threat modeling. And I'm like, I didn't even know that they had contracts for threat models, or I would assume there's some system architecture stuff in there as well.
Yeah,
But yeah,
probably.
yeah. So yeah, she's on contract to help them out with that. So that, never hurts to pick up a contract if you don't want to, contract to hire is definitely a way to go, if you've been unemployed or what have you. There are a lot of recruiters out there. I mean, hopefully you don't have to move to Minot, North Dakota or Greenland for the contract for 2 months, but there's always options there for remote work that way. Um, so I saw this. There's not a lot to the article. It just talks about attack surface management, and they define what attack surfaces and attack surface management is, and the 6 components of ASM. And they mention the assets in an attack surface is cloud or virtual assets, physical assets. Wow, that's going to be a hard one. Including hardware and servers. I'm assuming physical assets also are people, because that's an attack surface, really large ones sometimes. External assets, including online services obtained from external vendors. So this is your third parties, your 3Ps, if you will, that require storage or processing of company data or integrate with your organization's own network. That's the big one right there. They integrate with your organization's network. Shared networks. So this may be a subsidiary that you have potentially. Yes, as the case when a company is merged or acquisitioned. And so they have 1, 2, 3, 4. They said there's 6, but they only put 4. So I'm not exactly sure where the other 2 are, unless they count cloud and virtual as separate. That's still only 5. So I don't know where number 6 is. Oh no, here's the 6. Okay, so they're talking about the 6: discovery, monitoring, inventory. No, that's only 5. They don't know how to count. They said 6 right at the top.
Components.
Yeah, 6 components of ASM, but there's only
so below. I know they list the components: discovery, monitoring, inventory, prioritization.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, that's 5. Okay.
But maybe somebody should tell them.
Maybe they skipped like the most important one, and that's to reduce your attack surface. All right. Because sometimes when you look at your attack surface, right? What's here? Inventory. So the first thing I would do is take an inventory of what that attack surface looks like, and then the second thing I'm going to do is, okay, what do we not need anymore? What can we get rid of? What is redundant? Okay, can we just get rid of that product, or can we federate, right? Your logins, right? Can we do that? That kind of gets mostly rid of that attack surface, like at least from a login perspective, right? So single sign-on and multi-factor authentication, you suck that in, right? Most vendors will allow that. Okay, bring that into your SSO environment. So that's what I would be looking for, is take an inventory and reduce that stock as much as possible. Yeah. And then some of the other stuff like monitoring, prioritization, and remediation. Yeah, those come into play after that. But get rid of the things that you don't need. You might find, if you actually do a correct inventory, that you'll find some attack surfaces that you're like, why do we still have that? Why is that there? Why don't we do it a different way? Why don't we consolidate these 3 things into one? Because they do the same thing, right? And that, cost reduction too, right?
Right.
And yeah, so that's the way I would face it. So.
Yeah. I it's really hard because, we've preached the CIS, or what used to be at the time, the SANS Top 20. And the first one was like, know what assets you have in your environment, know what hardware and what have you. It's, that feels to me like shifting left. It's good for security to know those things, but the problem is we're not telling that to the teams over here. And getting the teams to help us understand that is what really needs to happen. But a lot of the lessons are taught to us, and this is the issue that I'm coming back to with information security. We have our conferences that is just nothing but a big echo chamber that says, oh, we should be doing these things. Great. How do we get the other teams to care? We're supposed to be shifting left, but what about the development teams? How do we make that more how do the development teams make it more accommodating for security to get involved? Same thing for this. attack surface management. If you have a cloud-based environment, you should easily be able to track your assets. If, your AWS, accounts or your Azure accounts should have a list of users, should have a list of your licenses. Tracking your licenses will be tracking your hosts. Where are your Windows 10 licenses? Where are your Windows 11 licenses? Where are your server licenses?
Where are your
These things.
APIs, right? T-Mobile.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah. Okay. That won't work for everything. You're absolutely right. That definitely would not have worked for T-Mobile. I talked a little bit about this earlier this week. They just got hit with another breach. It's their 8th since 2018. So that one's rough. I sympathize and yeah.
Yeah. Did you? Okay, minor tangent. Did you read the SEC filing?
That's where they announced
we take security very seriously. We've been investing in security for the last 8 years, blah, blah, blah.
We take security seriously is the, I don't, it's like one of those things. It's like, oh, I'm sorry for your loss kind of thing. It's something you have to say. And it is expected from all PR and marketing people. It's in their canned responses. It's just one of those things that they're required to say, I think, by law or some unwritten rule from the marketing and PR people.
To bring it around to this, you need to take an inventory of your attack surface. It's possible that they didn't even need that API to begin with. I don't know.
Right. Maybe
they did. But, it had access to a lot of data that it shouldn't have, right?
Right.
Or whether or not the passwords got out or there was a vulnerability, I don't know. But yeah, that's why articles like this, we're talking about the attack surface management is important, right? Because it could prevent things like what happened there.
Right.
If that API had been known to be, I suppose, I'm guessing it was vulnerable, then they could have shut it down pretty quickly, I believe.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, they actually didn't disclose this until this is their 8K or 10K, 8K filing. Okay, so I messed that up on the last stream. I said it was their 10K filing. It's actually their 8K filing, which is something that they have to push out for filings and what have you. So this, I put a link in our show notes. There'll be I will put a link in our show notes. I will also put a link in the chat window. Let me pop that down here. TMO's 8K filing. There you go.
And they found it on the 25th of November, and they just announced it this week.
Right.
Last week. Today's Sunday. So, I think under GDPR, they have 72 hours to notify. All right. So maybe they did notify their customers, at least in the EU, in which case it should have come out through word of mouth. I don't know. It's interesting. Well, I'm curious there.
I did read some that there's some legislation where it has to be a public thing. It can't be like hidden in an 8K filing. They're trying to push through where it's made more public. As you and I both know, announcing a breach, 72 hours is probably. I mean, what does that look like in 72 hours? I mean, you cannot adequately address the overall scope of things. I mean, if you announce it, it'd be like, yeah, we've been breached. Details whenever we can get them to you. That will be how it will be, because in 72 hours, you cannot say, well, okay, 37 million people were done. It's going to be, we were breached. No customer data was accessed this time. 72 hours from now, but like, oh, maybe a little customer data was accessed at this time. And then it's like, another 72 hours to be like, we got owned, y'all. And then it'd be like, so it, in 72 hours, I don't know if that's legitimately I don't know if it's legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's something that, is responsible to do either. I mean, it would be like, you know, yelling fire in a theater and then finding out, oh, is just somebody who lit up a cig, is there really, was it really a fire? What if you say you were breached and it wasn't actually a breach and it was just a mistake? Then it's like, did you get breached or didn't you get breached? Or now because you say you got breached, there's actually things that you're responsible for doing now, or you get fined for,
They did hire an external firm.
that was due.
Don't know who that is. And it's been 2 months. So
Right.
did it take them 2 months to find out that even with an external firm who's very apparently very skilled and knowledgeable on these matters, did it take them 2 months to notice that customer data had been leaked? I don't know. Seems like a long time, though, to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I would know within 72 hours if there's a probability
right
greater than 50% that customer data went out. In that case, you have to notify GDPR board or whatever it's called. You have to file. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to lead to some legal wiggling. It's like, when did we actually find it versus when, we can actually call it a breach. You're going to run into folks that are be like, oh, we don't want to call it a breach yet because when we do, the clock ticks. It's like, they're going to,
right.
Can we prove beyond a shadow of a doubt it was a breach? Okay, I'm gonna look over here for another 3 or 4 days. Why don't you go and figure something out, and then you tell me it's a breach.
Yeah.
I mean, there's your incident response at that point is going to be a bunch of when do we bring in the lawyers to tell them we actually got breached, or when should we tell them now? And then they're going to tell us, whoa, what's the letter of the law versus the intent of the law or the rule, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like political. No, you don't tell me anything.
I don't want to hear a breach. I don't want to hear the B word.
I don't want to hear about any of that. Don't ever bring that up to me.
Right. Yeah. Don't use the B word in my presence. That's right. Yeah. But
don't want to hear it, because then once you hear it, you're liable for whatever consequences there are.
Right. Yeah. Once you use the B word in my presence, then we have to light this playbook off, and then we have to fire up the PR people and the marketing weasels and all them folks. So yeah. Apparently I had read somewhere else that they're spending $150 million on security initiatives for these things, because I don't know. So T-Mobile seems to be the only ones that get hit. I mean, I was looking and I don't see AT&T or Verizon. For those of you in the US watching this, those are the major cell phone providers in the area.
Well, look at Verizon. I mean, they have their data breach report that they put out every year, right? They got to be looking at that, right? Because it's their report. I think if you actually do a data breach report and don't they outsource security to, I'm not outsourced, but they have an actual team that other companies hire to come in there and fix their security, and they may run SIMs for other companies. So they're big into security.
Right.
So they probably have a much better, more mature program than T-Mobile, just because they've been doing that for at least a decade.
Right. Well, they're not immune from breaches. Apparently, in October of 2022, they said the undisclosed number of prepaid customers attackers gained access to Verizon accounts and exposed credit card info and SIM swapping attacks. So a third-party actor accessed the last 4 digits of credit cards to make automatic payments on your account. Using the last 4 digits, the third party was able to gain access to your Verizon account and may have processed an unauthorized SIM change. So they're using credit. They were using in October 2022. They were using the last 4 of your credit card on file to make changes or to be a verification tool to access your accounts. They also reset account pins. So I mean, breaches happen from other, cell phone providers,
Yeah.
but it maybe they're just better at, hiding it,
That
or,
wasn't me.
minimizing the damage, the attack surface management, if you will.
Could be.
Yeah. So, yeah. So somebody should tell Flashpoint there was only 5 things in the attack surface management area. Not me. I won't be doing it. But they only have 5 things in the list here. So maybe you have to pay to get the 6th one. I don't know. So attack, monitoring, inventory prioritization, which is always good. A good vulnerability management program to help, your vulnerability management team prioritize any vulnerabilities. And then remediation may require things like incident response, or, some kind of problem management solution that or PMs or security PMs like myself to go and help remediate and fix any issues that are coming up. So, yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think I put that link in. Yeah, I put that link in the notes. All right. Let me see. So, no fly list?
Yeah. Where did that come from? The no-fly list, that is.
I saw this one, I want to say, in the last couple days, but apparently, third party, this case, Vice.com has actually posted it up. Ugh, ads. A copy of the no-fly list, the U.S. no-fly list. For those of you unaware, in the United States, there's a list of people who are not allowed to fly. I think started shortly after September 11th, 2001, the attacks, was highlighting high-risk people who are not allowed to fly on U.S. airlines and air carriers. This list is handed out to airlines, presumably, and made so that people can, be aware of that. So when you sign up for a ticket, it'll be like, oh, sorry, you have to go through additional screening, which is, probably, business speak for, yeah, we're not going to give you a ticket. So according to Vice and the Daily Dot, a Swiss hacker known as Maya Arson Crime W, and actually it's Crime U because from what I saw on Mastodon just about 45 minutes before we came on, a cat girl has hacked the TSA and leaked the no-fly list. She didn't hack the TSA. She found the list on a publicly accessible server that a third party had put the list on there. So yes, this person, Crime Mu, who's a Swiss hacker hacktivist, apparently leaked it out. So, they're getting their 15 minutes of fame. And doing a very poor job of OPSEC. So I would.
So they're quoted as saying, "I've been digging into various Jenkins servers for a while, and there's just so much to find. It was just a matter of time until I found something like this."
Yep. Where's the link? Oh, there it is. Yeah. So, yeah.
Why wasn't this public to begin with? I mean, if you're on a no-fly list, don't you, or shouldn't you know that already? I mean, is there some game that needs to be played? Like, okay, I'm on a no-fly list. Let me try to fly somewhere, and they give you the runaround, and you're not allowed to fly anyway, but you think you are, and then you sue the government. I don't know. Is it just a way to get you to waste your time and spend money and try to put you into bankruptcy? I don't know.
Yeah, I seem to think that there was you could do a FOIA request to find out if your name was on the list, and Walt Sepia Parker said that they've had that Walt's had a copy for years, got it from the airport, was doing software consulting for a company that did software for airports, security through obscurity. I don't know how new this list is. That's one thing I didn't see how new it was. Apparently, the text file was named nofly.csv, so it was a CSV file. Had 1.5 million people on it, including birth dates and names. It also included multiple aliases. And so, yeah, I mean, like you said, you just keep poking around on publicly exposed servers and you're going to find this. This was on Commute Air's corporate, Commute Air, which I believe is a U.S. Who was it? Airline. I want to say it was United. Let me see.
And it was
Yeah.
it was apparently on a quote misconfigured development server. So yeah, what rule number one? Don't put real data on a dev server
Right. Well, yeah,
if it was a dev.
yeah. Yeah, the server also held passport numbers, addresses, and phone numbers of 900 company employees. User credentials to more than 40 Amazon S3 buckets and servers ran by Commute Air were also exposed. So there's a lot more than just that. So in 2014, The Intercept did say the list had more than 47,000 names. So it's gotten a little bigger in the past few years. In 2016, 81,000 people were on the list. I'm assuming every person who's raised a ruckus on a plane and had to be asked to leave might have been put on it. Either the biggest thing they said was that there were a lot of people with like John Smith. So there was a lot of John Smiths on there in terms of like the first names being of Middle Eastern or Arab or South Asian descent. So apparently there's also journalists on there. I don't think they had any real, I think the fact that they could just put anybody on that list was what everybody's having a problem with. So,
What are the qualifications to be on that list? I'd like to know.
See, I think a lot of America would like to know that too, especially if you're on that list. I think you'd like to know too, right? I'm not.
If I'm not, I'd like to know what the qualifications are, and if anybody gets added to the list, did they break one of those rules, right? Because it's like, okay, I'll play the game, but just tell me the rules up front.
Right. I think that's the problem, though. There's, I mean, if you're a known terrorist, then yes, you should be on the list. But it could be somebody had said on here there were journalists who spoke ill of the United States, or they don't live in the United States, and they were talking junk about the United States that potentially was on there, according to this Daily Dot list article that I have here. I can't prove that, so I mean it's conjecture at this point, unless we can verify that it was some well-known journalist or somebody like that. So Walt says the one I have is an 8-tab Excel spreadsheet downloaded from a PHP bulletin board run for the TSA. Each day they upload a new version. Small airports were manually downloading the list each morning. Jesus, now I know why we had no TAMS outages the last 2 weeks ago. Jeez.
Put that on an API. That'd be easier. A public API.
Well, you know how
download it.
I know you're being facetious, considering we just talked about TMO's breach, where they people were dropping APIs that were garbage. But it's just a rough deal. Okay, good. Sorry, I had to switch over and see if there was anybody on our. Oh gods, there goes the stream. There goes the stream. Well, YouTube just died, so enjoy that, y'all. So yeah, I screwed that up. So I learned you can't close the YouTube tab if you're streaming on YouTube. So well, they're gone now, so probably
kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Oh no, there it is. It's back again. Okay, we had one person. That's kind of cool. 5 views. Okay. Anyway, so this person, this Nyan Crime or whatever, said, "Oh yeah, I would, if they call me to testify, we'll be there." And just a lot of garbage up in here on this thing. And I was like, you probably don't want to be flying anywhere right now, because your OPSEC is probably garbage. And if you fly someplace where there's, I worry about them being picked up by the law enforcement and being extradited to the U.S. for leaking this information. I actually do. I think we've arrested people for doing far less, which is unfortunate. But I hope they enjoy Switzerland for a while, because if you go to some place, that allows for that, like England, you may end up getting, pulled for that. So, yeah. See, yeah, I think it's funny whenever people call me a patriot or a U.S. national here. I'm literally from Europe, and also if I enter your nation, I go to prison for like 20 years. So this person is an indicted hacker, apparently, according to their Wikipedia page that they have. And so, yes, 2021, indicted by grand jury in the United States on criminal charges alleged to hacking activity between 2019 and 2021. Charges were unrelated to the hack for Verkada. Her home her home and her parents' home were raided by the Swiss police at the request of the United States, and her electronic devices were seized. Okay, so she's doing things that are not going to put her in the good graces again with the United States government. I don't know what to say at this point. I'm not gonna make conjectures, but it probably is not gonna be a good thing. So, when Monday rolls around, and the government wakes up and realizes that this is a thing, it's gonna cause some issues. So, I'm still learning how to use my my keyboard. So,
Keyboard.
yeah. All right. Well, we're sitting at an hour. So is there anything else we'd like to talk about? I have a link on here about, somebody who made some graphics about threat intelligence, and I really have issues with that because there's some generalities there. Hackers are using OneNote attachments to spread malware, which is,
why do we execute VB script again? I mean, come on, this is the 90s call.
Well, because a lot of companies live in Excel, right? And that's how people do business, in Excel. I've argued for years that InfoSec is everything boils down to CSV and Excel. We don't query databases. Yeah. It's just easy to pop everything into a tabulated data format and, use a CSV file. As you can see from the no-fly list that we just talked about. Everything comes down to CSV.
Yeah, well, CSV is not auto execute, but a VBS is.
Right.
And anyway, and this is a .one file. So yeah, be careful about those as well. Might want to
.one.
Yeah, OneNote.
Yeah.
I think it's one. Let me look.
Bleeping Computer says, yeah, however, Microsoft finally disabled macros by default in Office documents. Okay, so we're winning, right?
Yeah.
We're disabling macros. We've won, Mr. Boettcher. We're secure now, right? By default.
Yes. By default, you're secure.
It said soon after.
So, okay. So I'm going to go look at my gateway and make sure that I'm blocking .one files.
Right.
So there's another one. Okay, exe, one. There's another one for your list.
Okay.
Literally one.
Right. Well, you also have to block ISO files and password protected zip files, but I don't know if there's an extension for password protected zip files.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it's user awareness. If they have a password protected zip file and the password is in the same email, probably don't want to open that. Right. Even if it's legitimate, you want to email it back to the person and say, look, you shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
If it is someone if it's not, just ignore it.
Yeah. What gets me is, how many people send OneNote files? And I have never received a OneNote file.
I've never sent or received one.
And so, okay, so from a user point of view, I'm just, Joe average user person, and I get an ONE file. For me, I would be like, what the hell's an ONE file? Because I don't know if I have OneNote installed on my system or not, but why would they be sending me a OneNote file? That would be odd. there feels like there needs to just be a simple thing. It's like, look, we only accept PDFs, and I know there's issues with PDFs, but it's like, we only accept PDFs, or we only accept incoming attachments that go to this site, or like this one, it was a shipping notice or list or something. And it's like, see, this is an example of a perfect fish here. Please urgently confirm attached DHL shipping. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you have the bleeping computer one up or not, but
I do.
so, your dear customer, our dear customer, not like, this is like dearest person, please, give us $15 million for our $20 million of stuff that's, our dear customer. Who says that?
Right.
See, there you go. If you're laid off, there are people out there writing horrible fishes that they could use your help writing better phishing. I mean, look at that, right? There's a whole cottage industry of being able to write a successful fish. I'm a native speaker. I could write you some fishes that would work. Anyway, please don't do that. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have suggested that to people, but it probably is what it is. So, I mean, the opening is odd. You have, please urgently confirm attached DHL shipping documents to see if your address is correct before we submit it to our outlet office for dispatch to your destination. They're asking for like, do it now, do it now, do it now. It's super important. And you're like, well, I don't remember getting anything from DHL, but I better go check on it. And you're going to click on that anyway, because they don't give you another way of verifying it other than clicking on the attachment. So, are you going to take the time to find out from a second channel if the DHL is actually legit? No, you're going to click on that link because that's the easy way out. And apparently it works.
Yep. You don't have time.
Yeah.
And plus it's a legitimate Office document.
Sure. So this is actually a pretty good write-up. Clicking the OK button will launch the VBS script to download and install the malware. As you can see from the malicious OneNote VBS files found by bleeping computer, the script will download and execute 2 files from a remote server. First one is a decoy OneNote doc that opens and looks like the document you expected. However, the VBS will also execute a batch file in the background to install malware on the device. So it's got a Trojan, direct-trojan.com. Excellent domain name, by the way. Runs CMD, so invoking PowerShell, web request to a URI. So it's calling command.exe to invoke PowerShell.exe to download something like curl, like a curl or a wget if you're in Linux. Wow. Damn. It's good stuff. Bleeping computer, the OneNote attachments he analyzed and sold async rat and xworm remote access trojans. Okay. OneNote attachment seen by bleeping computer
with a URL
installs
like that. It's like, shove it in our face,
Yeah. So that's a good discussion. I mean, you should. I have gotten into the habit of like having Slack channels at work. And we have one for security team. We have a security team Slack. I've started throwing up articles that people post up in our Slack or our Discord or ones I find on Mastodon or Twitter of just security stuff. Like, here's a security vulnerability. Boom. It goes into the internal, Slack channel, because there's a lot of folks that, I don't know, they prairie dog a little bit. They only poke their head up once in a day, or they didn't even know this was a thing, like dependency, packages with dependency issues or something like that. It's like, look, here's a package in Python that is malicious as shit. We probably should go check and see. Oh man, how'd you find that? I am on the internet, that kind of thing. Yeah, Mr. PC Fix It, thank you for coming and hanging out. It's commodity malware. Yeah, it's a lot of this stuff is commodity malware because, as people are wont to say, it doesn't have to be complicated if it works, right? So it's still effective, it still works, probably fairly cheap. It's the McDonald's of malware.
This is to get the person compromised, so the dropper can download any kind of malware. Right. Trojans, ransomware, things like that. So,
right.
It's just a technique to get elevated privileges and to fool, which comes with the social engineering component, to fool the user into uh, giving privileges or double clicking or executing the dropper itself. And then
Right.
the dropper goes and downloads malware and installs it.
Yep.
Two different techniques, right? One, yeah, well, it's probably two different development teams. One's focused on the dropper, the social engineering aspects, emailing, all that. The other's focused on the control, the Trojan
Right.
itself.
Right. So this is interesting. So they've already got you clicking on the OneNote file. So you open the OneNote file, and then everything's kind of blurry, and then there's a box over it says double click to view this file. So then you're already in, up to your neck because you've opened up a OneNote file that's got some nasty shit in it. And then they're, obviously you're going to click again because, oh, now it's, it's grayed out. I can't see shit. If I want to get my work done and I want to go back to,
You got to enable
surfing porn at
macros.
work, I need to click on that link, you know? So, when you're already, up to your neck, now you're going to just, completely go underwater by double clicking on whatever it is this is. And then by then they own you. So,
Yeah, it's like this is an encrypted file. It's very private. Click on enable macros to unencrypt, things like
yep.
that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Cryptography.
This is kind of interesting. So they hid 4 VB files behind that bar, the click document thing. So by double clicking on anywhere in the temporary area, you're actually double clicking on the VBS file to you're shooting yourself in the foot because one of those 4 icons have 4 copies of that script. So, that is so low tech. God damn, that's awesome. I hate that. I hate that. God. Yes, Mr. PC Fix It. I'm like, I'm in the wrong line of work. I told my wife that. I was like, I could be writing fishes for malware artists or something and making $10,000 a month or something. All they do, gods, I hate that. I hate that it's so easy. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So we've talked about this. There's a OneNote file. Mr. Boettcher, let me ask you a question. How many OneNote files have you ever gotten from an external source or from an internal source? Because my next question for you, when you say none, is like you said, block this in your email chain. This should not even be allowed to be delivered to people in this case.
Right.
And it's one of those things here. Let's say, the off chance somebody does send a legit OneNote file. Okay. They get a legitimate OneNote file. That is a legitimate, something, hey, here's my meeting notes in a OneNote format. That would be the only way I could see that. You're saying to block it from outside coming in, which is great. In the event from outside coming in, there is a legitimate OneNote file. I think the pain of getting that file unlocked and removed from the email server is, in this case, better than having to deal with the aftermath of see, that's why I'm trying to figure this out. So from an incident response point of view, which would be easier to manage? Blocking the email attachment and then making people have to go in and get this out of there because it's a legit one, or dealing with the ramifications of somebody clicking on it in the first place? This is my shifting left.
Definitely blocking the OneNote the file would be better because you can say, look, we don't allow that. If you want somebody to send you their OneNote file, then they need to send it in another format, zip it up, use a different method other than email, something like that, some other type of share. Yeah. Right? Have them put it on their SharePoint or Box or whatever they have,
right?
And drop it to you,
right? And there's probably automated tools you can have where it's like, oh, we blocked this OneNote file. If you believe it's legit, let us know. But Yeah, Mr. PC Fix, I would just block and show them how to share. That, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, but this came from an external outside source. So this came from, Joe Bob Billy at badactor.com. Hey, by the way, here's your, DHL invoice. It's like, maybe you shouldn't block it, or maybe you should block it. I mean, this is my shifting left for security. It's like, I could block this, and the person who may have gotten this somewhat out, one less than 1.001% chance that was a legit note. I am now on the hot seat for 1 out of a billion chance incident where that was a legit OneNote file versus, I'm losing a weekend now because now I have to clean malware out of my company. It's like,
yeah.
That's oh God, I would love to be able to explain that to management. We'd be like, look, it's a pain in the ass over here, but it's really going to be a pain in the ass over here. I mean, like to the nth degree. You're not. I mean, these aren't even the same level of efforts here. It's like, okay, I take 5 minutes out of my day and I unblock the legitimate file, or I can spend 5 people at 25 hours a day fixing the incident response, and now we're spending millions of dollars because Bob needs his needs to click on his somewhat legitimate OneNote file.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Mr. Boettcher, we had a couple other things. We'll put those in the show notes for everybody. Being led by a weak leader, I agreed with some of the things in there. I didn't agree with some of the other things in there. Just some, something that isn't InfoSec that I wanted to put in there in case you, have questions about that. I'm sure everybody can, go, oh, I have, at some point, oh, no, that's not it. You've had leaders that you were, unhappy with, or you felt, weren't advocating for you or what have you. There's a number of, there's a bunch of comments in there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on our Discord. If you want to check that out, Discord, I should actually put that in our show notes here, discord.gg/breaksec. We have a threat intelligence channel on there, Mr. Boettcher, if you're so interested. Yeah, got a ton of stuff going on there. So yeah, what's that?
I said it's good stuff. Threat intel.
Yeah. You could join us on Discord, if you wanted to, stay away from social media. We're just on Discord. I think the majority of our posts this week have been me finishing up one of the Wheel of Time books in the Wheel of Time channel. But yeah. So points of contact. Miss Berlin, if you're wondering where Miss Berlin is, she had actually messaged us that she was actually flying home from Shmoo. We'll probably get her on in the next week or two to talk about Shmoo, and we're working on some of the leads that she's following, potentially getting some guests to come on and talk here on the show. And I'm going for a threat intel position at a company soon. Should have a second interview. Good job, Mr. PC Fix It. Good on you. I hope everything goes well for you there on that. And they'll be damn lucky to get you. I'll tell you that much. You just feel that way. I'd love to hear Mr. PC Fix It if what kind of questions they asked you about threat intel. I'd love to find out about that. I also had some discussion about some of the insurance stuff. If you go back to our previous stream that I did, ISSA interviewed the Constellus, or no, we didn't. The local ISSA had as a guest the CISO of Constellus that used to be G, which used to be a bunch of other names, but it ended up being Blackwater. And I didn't know it was Blackwater at the time. But the person had some interesting insights about how they felt about SIMs and what insurance companies are looking for now when they go to decide whether or not they want to insure you. So go check out some of the previous streams we've had. I think I got that one on YouTube and on LinkedIn, so you can go check those out. So, Mr. Boettcher, let's go ahead and kick this pig. Tell people where they can find you if they wanted to talk to you
on the internet. Well,
no.
log-md.com.
Okay.
You can find me from there. Yep.
All right. Cool. And you're somewhat on Twitter?
Not so much lately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you joined the Mastodons?
Have not.
How do you keep up on on threat intelligence stuff, or like, I stay informed in this case? You have a threat intelligence feed, or you just, not worried so much about security stuff when it comes out?
Yeah, we have some tools at work that
Okay.
inform us of the new threat intel stuff that comes out. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So yeah, he's Boettcher Pwned on Twitter. Uh, yeah. We're on Miss Berlin is of course at InfoSyster, INFOSYSTIR, Hackers Health, and she's on Mastodon at InfoSyster, but I don't know if she's on Mastodon all that much. I'm actually more on Mastodon because I like that sometimes I get different news stories there than I do on Twitter than I do in my Feedly. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that apparently is not being, reported on. So at Bryan Brake on Twitter, at Bryan Brake on Mastodon.social. And yeah, you can join our Discord where I and other moderated fans and people like Walt and Mr. PC Fixit and others can come and join us. And we talk about security stuff. I post up a lot of links for different tools. My stream that I do on Fridays, we're going and learning Golang. I'm learning Golang. I'm trying to learn Golang. And so I usually stream on Tuesdays and Fridays. We're going to have a Thursday one next week for an interview from somebody from B-Side San Diego. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on here. So, the Discord will keep you up to date. I'm trying to post everything on Twitter when at all possible. But yeah, come and check it out. We're pretty fun, I think. So. All right. So, Mr. Boettcher, hope you have a good day, sir. And yeah, we'll see everybody again soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So that was it for Bringing Down Security, of course. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for my streamers. Thank you to Mr. PC Fixit and Walt and all the other folks who came in. Thank you to Tiberius for giving us a shout out the other day. Triplexity for resubscribing at tier 1, and all of the followers on our Twitch stream, because we love educating you and hope that you'll get information from it. So yeah, so have a good week. We'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. If you need a CV review, resume review, come into the Discord, join our Slack. We can help you out there. We've got folks that are more than willing to take a look at your resumes as well. So take care of yourselves, of course, as we're always fond of saying here, you're only you have. So take care, and we'll talk soon. Bye, y'all.